Okay, this is about the fifth test, so I finally think I got the volume and the writing connected. Since I've already written, I'm just going to explain what's on the paper here. So I'm going to let it focus to get to this. I did start out saying the volume was not working. However, I believe we have volume now. You're going to deal with two types of triangles, a 30, 60, and a 90, and a 45, 45, 90. There are two ways to solve this stuff, and I'm going to show you just one way today. So I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to let it focus. We have two triangles. We have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. The side across from the 30-degree angle is always going to be worth a 1 in our pattern. The side across from the 60-degree angle is going to be a square root of 3 in our pattern, and the hypotenuse is going to be equal to a 2. Then, I think we should still be in focus, our 45-45 triangle. Both of those legs, remember, are congruent because it is an isosceles triangle. And so the legs are going to both be 1s in our pattern, and the hypotenuse is going to be a square root of 2. So those are the two ideas you're going to use for the lesson today. Okay, so I'll let it focus. Okay, we have our special right triangles. Our theorem 7.8 says in a 45, 45, 90 triangle, the hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times as long as each leg. So each of the legs, remember, are going to be identical, and then whatever they are times the square root of 2 will get you your hypotenuse. So they're telling you hypotenuse is equal to the leg times the square root of 2. So I'm going to move my paper up. I'm going to let the camera focus, and if you look at my papers, example A, I drew another triangle. So I have my second triangle holds the pattern. So remember, both of the legs were 1s. The hypotenuse across from the leg was a square root of 2. And so now I've built two new ratios. I used the 6 and the x across the numerators, and then I just matched up the 6 to the 1 to make 6 over 1. I matched up this x to the square root of 2 to make our second ratio. Remember, same things to same things. We cross multiply. 1 times x equals 6 times square root of 2. You're done. Okay, I'm going to move it over. Hope that it focuses. Okay, we're on part B. Again, I've got a right triangle. These are my legs. So I identified my pattern as two legs of 1, hypotenuse is square root of 2. Again, I built two ratios. I did 4 square roots of 2 and x as my numerator, and then I matched the 4 square roots of 2 to a 1 for underneath that, and I matched up the square root of 2 under the x. So now I have 1 times x is x, 4 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. Remember, square root of 2 times square root of 2 becomes plain 2, so 4 times 2 is going to be 8. Okay, we should still be in focus for C. So again, my pattern, 2 legs 1, hypotenuse square root of 2. And again, I drew numerator as 2 square roots of 2 and the x. So then underneath I matched up 2 square roots of 2 with the 1. Matched up the x with the square root of 2. We cross multiply. 1 times x is x. 2 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 becomes 2 times 2, or 4. Okay, last two examples. Oh, I hope we weren't out of focus on that one. Okay, so the last two examples, now we're doing the same thing. Here's my pattern. 1, 1, square root of 2. So I set up numerator to numerator, x to 9 square roots of 2. I followed the pattern. A leg is a 1, a hypotenuse is a square root of 2. So I cross multiply. 1 times 9 square roots of 2 is 9 square roots of 2. Square root of 2 times x is square root of 2 times x. I divide both sides by the square root of 2, so the answer is 9. Okay, over here on this side, again, I drew my pattern. Legs of 1, square root of 2 for the hypotenuse. I set up my ratios. X to 12 square roots of 2. There's my two pieces of my one triangle. Then I did x to 1 to make the first ratio. 12 square roots of 2 to square root of 2 to make the second. Again, I cross multiply, solve for x. Okay, last side. Okay, I'll let it focus for a minute. Okay, again, this is the 30, 60, 90 triangle. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the hypotenuse is twice as long as the short leg, and the longer leg is the square root of 3 times as long as the short. So here's that written out and this is the other method I'll be showing you. Hypotenuse is 2 times the short. Long leg is always short leg times square root of 3. We're going to do patterns first. Remember, across from the 30-degree angle is the 1. Across from the 60-degree angle is the square root of 3. And the hypotenuse, whoops, I forgot to write a right angle, is always a square root, or the 2 is always across from the hypotenuse. Sorry, I got messed up there. Okay, I'm going to move it up a little bit, let it autofocus. Okay, we are dealing with our first example. We have a 30 and a 60. The 30-degree angle has a 2 square roots of 3 across from it. The 60 has an x. So I draw my pattern. 30 has a 1 across, but I draw the 30 and the 60 in the same spots. 30 is going to be across from the 1. Square root of 3 is going to be across from the 60. And 2 is across from the hypotenuse. I set up a ratio. Leg to leg, so 2 square roots of 3 to x. Now the 1 goes with the 2 square root of 3, so that goes under the 1. The square root of 3 goes with the x, so x over square root of 3. We do 1 times x is x. 2 times the square root of 3 times square root of 3 becomes 2 times 3, or 6. Okay, next pattern. Again, I drew my pattern the same as the original, so 30 to 60, 30 to 60. My 1 is across from the 30. My square root of 3 is across from the 60, and my hypotenuse is across from the 2. So I set up pretty much 3 ratios, a y, an x, and an 8 from this triangle. Then I matched them up, the y to the 2 for the hypotenuse, the x to the 1, and the 8 to the square root of 3. I split them out. X over 1 equals 8 over square root of 3. Square root of 3 times x equals 8. So x is 8 over square root of 3, but remember you have to rationalize because you have a square root in the denominator. So 8 times the square root of 3 over 3 is your final answer. If you look at the y over 2, 8 over square root of 3, same thing happens. We have square root of 3 times y equals 2 times 8, or 16. So we divide by square root of 3, we end up with 16 over square root of 3. We rationalize by making that new fraction out of square root of 3's. So final answer for y, 16 square roots of 3 over 3. Okay, I'll let it autofocus. The bottom problems. First of all, our original problem was a height 16 for the bottom and 32 for the hypotenuse. Here's my pattern set up the same way. This was a 60, so 60, 30, 60, 30. So I set up a ratio. H to 16, here's my 2 pieces. I could have used the 32 also. Then I did square root of 3 was in the same place as the h. 1 was in the same place as the 16. So h over square root of 3 equals 16 over 1. I cross multiply. Answer is 16 square roots of 3. Okay, same thing over here. Here's my original. The height was h. The bottom was 6. The hypotenuse was 12. It was an equilateral triangle, so every angle was 60, which means if this is 60, this has to be 30. So here's my pattern. 1 is across from the square root of 3. Square root of 3 is across from the 60, and hypotenuse, I forgot to make a right angle again, is across from the 2. Okay, so we set up our patterns. Here's our original. H and 6 were both off of this triangle. Our patterns we follow, the H has a square root of 3 because they match positions. The 6 and the 1 is here. We cross multiply 6 square roots of 3. Bottom problem, same thing. We have a 60-degree angle down here, which makes that a 30. We know that we're looking for the height, and we know the hypotenuse. If we do our pattern, 1 is across from the 30, square root of 3 is across from the 60, hypotenuse is the 2. We set it up. H and 24 are from the original triangle. Here's our pattern. So h to square root of 3, 24 to 2. We cross multiply. 2 times h is 24 square roots of 3. Divide both sides by 2. Answer is 12 square roots of 3. Please try the homework on this. You just need to draw the patterns and then set up ratios. Thank you.